Welcome to my new office. I know it looks the same as it always did, but what works, might as well stick with it. So, yeah, come see us at 25 Bruce Street. We're back in Kitchener. I'm very excited to be back in the big city of Kitchener, a little bit closer to Cambridge for all my Cambridge clientele. And if you got a free moment this summer, you want to come say hi, or then in the fall, love to have you. All right, thank you for taking a time to review my video and hopefully my newsletter. I got a bunch of very interesting articles down below, which I think you'll find very insightful. And yeah, we're going to talk about a few things. Where's the market trends going? Mortgage rates. I got some exciting news regarding that, and just overall how to look at things. I do find that on the buy side, there's a little bit of discouragement. On the sell side, there's a little bit of discouragement. It just seems like a real tug of war, which I kind of talked about earlier in the year, and that's is still persisting. But I think really the key here is how we look at things. So I'm going to take some time later on in this little video to kind of discuss, how to look at all the numbers and see how we can, turn around to make them a little bit more positive for whatever your plans may be. So without further ado, let's go have a look at the mortgage side and then the real estate side, and hopefully I can give you a new perspective. Okay, so right off the get-go, I'm very excited and happy to announce that the Bank of Canada has reduced the rate by another quarter point. So this is just great news here. Got all the information down below. Check that out at your convenience, and yeah, it'll just be great information there. And right along those same lines, I already got an email from one of my lenders saying that they're dropping the rates a little bit on even the fixed side. So that's a good side. Keep in mind, just because the Bank of Canada drops its rates, while that does impact the variable rates right away, it does not necessarily impact the fixed rates. But it is a good sign that it is starting to drop there. And if you read the article here, they're talking about possibly we might see one and even two more rate drops before the end of the year. And of course, in 2025, perhaps even more, indicative of the market and the economy and how everything is going there. So hopefully that will be coming our way. I'm quite excited about that. Now, keep in mind that as we look at mortgage rates and how this impacts the overall market, I know there's many buyers out there that are kind of sitting on the sidelines. They're finding things, affordability is a little bit off. I'm just going to kind of rewind and go back to earlier times there in which we had uh, our lower rates, and then of course the rates dropped, and then how that all impacted things here. So I actually took the Bank of Canada prime rate, and I took the Kitchener Waterloo average sale prices. I put the two together in a graph, which you'll see here in the background, and you'll see that we have a consistent kind of increase in valuations from about 2016 to about just short of 2020, just before our whole COVID era there. And when you run those numbers, we went up about 60% in value over that 5-year span. So that's pretty good. It ranged anywhere from 9 to 12% any given year, and that's a nice increase for anybody who owned there. But not absorbent, not over the top there. But then, as you can see, how the Bank of Canada dropped the rates very drastically, which is actually quite surprising. They were actually due, according to many economists, to actually raise the rates as they felt the market was getting a little bit too heated up. But then, of course, the fear of the COVID's impact on the market, they dropped it. And as you can see, the direct correlation there, as the rates dropped to some of the lowest levels ever on the central bank numbers, the market just consistently went up right here to the point of 2022, right at the very peak, where it seemed like the sky's the limit. We couldn't really reach the top, but as you can see, those rates started going up there. And I've got these all done in quarterly amounts, and as of the first quarter, we saw a significant drop there. Second quarter. First quarter was kind of our high of 2022, and second quarter, so by the time we got to June, we were down significantly, and even more so once we got to the end of that summer. Now, once the numbers played out and everybody kind of reevaluated things, we saw things start to stabilize there, and we actually saw it go up again. But unfortunately, the Bank of Canada, as if we were starting to kind of the overall market starting to feel a little bit more confident. Bank of Canada once again last May did another rate hike, and that took whatever little bit of steam we were getting and pushed us back down. Now this year we're seeing that go up a bit, but it has been kind of flat recently. Actually, later on getting to real estate numbers, you'll see we've actually seen a bit of a drop. Well, we did see that up, which is normal. It has unfortunately dropped as well. An article here I've got in my newsletter just talks about how the overall real estate market is doing across Canada. But the one number that really kind of jumped out at me here was the active listings in the GTA. we're up 67.4%, 23,613 as of June when this article was written. And I know a lot of you will say, well, Dan, I don't live in Toronto. I don't really care what's going on in Toronto. And I understand that. It is a different market group, and things there don't necessarily directly impact us. But the way I look at it, especially being in Kitchener-Waterloo, is that the 401 is almost like a river. And whatever's kind of occurring at the top, upstream, it directly impacts what's happening downstream. And while the impact is perhaps a little bit less the further downstream we get, there definitely is a direct correlation. So in the past, with the absorbent prices that we've seen in Toronto, we've seen more and more would-be buyers just say, what are my other options out there? So they start flocking out to places like Hamilton and Kitchener and Barrie and other locations. And then of course that made things much more expensive around the Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge area, Tri-City area. And then, of course, we saw everybody kind of trickle down that 401 or just really disperse from our cities as well and started impacting areas like Stratford and Woodstock and Brantford. And again, those valuations went up. And then again, further down the stream, we hit London, and likewise, everything's happening there. So as you see, if we've got a huge inventory increase, that's going to directly impact the buyers and their desire to want to go downstream. They're going to say, you know what, I've got opportunities here. There's no need for me to go downstream. And so we are seeing that. The overall numbers are dropping huge for the number of buyers. And so we're not seeing people come from GTA as much. They still are, but just not as much as they had in the past. Looking a little closer to home here, one of my colleagues has put together another great weekly summary as to what's going on here in our local market. And as you can see, we've got over the last week, 1,390 versus the last week. So a slight uptick in listings, but a lot more than what we had last year. The same time last year, around 800 listings. More importantly, we often look at the resale options that are out there. And the biggest thing is to just to notice that there's less homes to choose from, but definitely a lot to pick from overall. Um, and the other thing I want to highlight here, which I think has done a great job of doing for us, is really he tracks very closely how many homes are selling, at list, above list, how much below list, above list, whatever else there. And the one that really catches my eye is this 57%. 50%, 7% of deals were done at or below list price, which is up from last week. So we are seeing a slight uptick there in the number of homes that aren't necessarily utilizing, or that strategy of underpricing isn't quite working out as well as people had thought. So that is creating a great opportunity for buyers out there who are just getting a little disfranchised with this whole multiple offer situation. I'm going to talk a little bit later there, but really for many people that have been wanting to do upsizing or downsizing and they just don't want to deal with all these multiple offers, this is a nice trend. We were actually reviewing this week Hamilton, and we actually noticed that in Hamilton, we're seeing a lot less agents actually employ the underlist strategy. So they're just kind of letting them sit in the market and see what happens there. Okay, so let's dive into the peak numbers, which very much correlate with my colleague here has put together. And as you can see, we are seeing the average sale prices down. This is looking at single detached homes. But between June and July, we're kind of flatlining. From one week to the next, it is kind of seeing a bit of a yo-yo experience there. But again, definitely some real opportunities. Looking here at the sheet, I'd like to also kind of highlight the cancellations. As you can see, we've seen a lot more cancellations in recent months. That has started to drop off a little bit, but to me that indicates a couple of things. And I'm just going to look at the overall market trend here. So this includes all home types: semi-attached, townhouses, condos, condo townhouses, condo high-rises, you name it. And as you can see, during the month of June, we saw 508 cancellations. And I think that's partially just people saying, I'm going to take a break for the summer. The numbers aren't quite going the way I wanted to, and maybe we're just going to cancel our plans. And I get that. And then I think a lot of it is just the case of people tried to underprice, employ that traditional strategy. It's worked out quite well, and the numbers just did not quite work to their liking, and so they've gone ahead and relisted. But that is definitely starting to see a bit of a drop there, but it still is working. I mean, keep in mind, back to Ken's numbers, 57% of homes have not sold or sold under the list price. That also means 43%, which is almost half or getting close to half, have sold actually above list price. Now, for my buyers out there, my would-be buyers that would like to get into the buying side of things, keep in mind too, just because they sold 43% above, 43% sold above list price, doesn't mean that they necessarily sold for a lot more. And the bigger thing is, did they necessarily get to where the sellers wanted to go? I've been finding in many cases not necessarily quite as high. And so some of these sellers have had to make concessions and sell their homes for a little bit less, but they have still employed the under list strategy, more so to get the job done quicker, with no conditions and just peace of mind, which is, goes a huge way this day and age. Okay. So for many of clients, I would actually say, this is a great time to buy. With more inventory and now with the mortgage rates dropping, there is potential, of course, that we'll see more mortgage rates drops. But going back to my Excel sheet from earlier, keep in mind that if we do see that drop, we are very likely to see the house valuations start to rise again. There's an article I was reading earlier this week from RBC Economics, and I'll just quote them. They said, "We think that most buyers will wait for steep rate cuts before jumping into the market as the lag impact of high interest rates keeps budgets under pressure." And that definitely makes sense. I think you'll see that. Unfortunately, it's kind of that snowball effect, where you don't get the first few snowballs going, and then as more and more start going downhill, everybody kind of jumps on that bandwagon. So again, I'm going to reference Warren Buffett and the notion that he has often put out there, that when everybody's doing something, do the opposite of that. So if everybody's kind of sitting on the sidelines, then perhaps that's a good time for you to buy in, because once you typically jump in to also want to buy, it's too late. The inventory will start dropping because all the buyers will start buying again, and usually we'll see those prices start to go back up there. Um, okay, the biggest thing I'm actually noticing, which is a very huge positive, is that those who've been wanting to upsize or downsize, this is a great opportunity to do that. I do get the frustrations with the lean market, in which many people during those lean times employed the underlist strategy, requiring you to go firm with no conditions. But given this environment that we're in now, that is not as necessary. So you can, once again, in many cases, be smart and savvy. Look for those opportunities where people have not underlisted the home, and perhaps it's sitting. Maybe that's an opportunity for you to put in an offer conditional upon the sale of your home, and that way you have that peace of mind. Whereas you're not, necessarily having to buy and hope you can sell, which is very, very risky this day and age, or the other way around. Sell first, but then you have no idea what you're going to be buying. So just to kind of help you wrap your head around these numbers, and perhaps you can pass this on to family and friends, feel free to share this video, or even better, have them come see me. But let's just take a look at some of these numbers. I put on a little whiteboard here in the background. So right now we're seeing the market from the highs of this year. We're down anywhere from 6 to 8%, depending on what product you're looking at there. But I'm just going to use 10% just because it's easier to work with. I'm just going to look at some general numbers here. So if you have $1 million home and the home has dropped it by 10%, you're looking at a new sale price of approximately $900,000. So hence $100,000 differential. On the flip side, say you had a $700,000 home, you're also going to be going down 10%, but 10% for 700 is about 70,000. So the true difference really, and this is the thing you got to look at. I've had a lot of clients get a little discouraged. Oh, Dan, my house, I thought it was worth $1 million and now it's here. I thought my house was worth 800,000 and now it's 720. Well, the positive is you're going to be buying something else. They're also down. So really, you shouldn't be thinking about the 70,000 or the $100,000 loss, but think of it as, oh, what's the spread? And again, it depends on what your situation is there. Some of my downsizers, it's not quite in your favor because unfortunately you will be taking more of a loss. So while you'll be selling a little bit lower or quite a bit lower, you'll hopefully be buying quite a bit lower, but you're still going to be taking, in this example, a $30,000 loss. But my upsizers, many of my younger people, this is a great opportunity. I would say give me a call and let's discuss if it makes any sense. Unfortunately, I may have to convey to you that your home is maybe not worth what you had thought it had been worth. I have unfortunately had to share it with a lot of people. But on the positive side, if you have a $700,000 home, it's now going to sell for 630. I didn't adjust the number there, but you know how that works out. 630, you got $70,000. But the positive is we can now go and buy that $1 million home for 900,000, which is a great feeling. Okay, and again, getting back to what I talked about earlier, there you can get those conditions back in. A little bit of peace of mind. You don't have to just jump in and go firm. Now that being said, you have to really kind of monitor that market, and if they're playing that game, I would recommend kind of avoid those houses. Let it sit, let it do its thing, especially if you have a house to sell. That may not be the right home for you. And don't get tricked into valuations either. I mean, that's really what agents are trying to do, including myself. I mean, that's kind of what we do. We underprice them to get people in to make that all happen there. One more thing in regards to the mortgage numbers, I know a lot of people are saying, oh, wow, this is great. We're going to get those mortgage rates down and I can afford to borrow more money, which means I can get a bigger home and everything else. And I understand that. Rule of thumb right now, given our current rates, is that you're paying around $55 a month over a 25-year period for a $10,000 loan. So again, just to add, if it was a $100,000 loan, you'd be paying about $550 a month and so forth and so on. Here's the flip side of that equation. If the rates drop, you will start paying less. You might go down to $50 or $45. And then, of course, being a mortgage broker, I'll say, I got great news. You now qualify for an extra $10,000 or $20,000. And you'll run your numbers and say, okay, that's great. We can go and buy the extra $10,000 or $20,000 or $30,000 home because my monthly cost for the previous loan has dropped, just like we saw back in 2022. The downside is, going again back to 2022, is that when those rates drop, we're going to see those valuations go back up. So any savings you thought you're going to have are going to potentially get eaten up by the new value of these homes. So you might save some money on the mortgage side, but you're going to be paying on the flip side. And as I've indicated here, my advice to you would be save yourself the $10,000. Because keep in mind, when you borrow $10,000 at $50 or $55 a month, that is over the course of 25 years. So your true cost could be well over double over the 25-year span. Rather than doing that, I would say, buy in today while the interest rates are still perhaps a little higher. Lock in. You can always go variable if you don't want to do the lock-in option, or even the 3-year mortgages are pretty good. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful. Again, reach out to me, have a discussion. I don't mind it. It's good to kind of pre-plan. As I often tell many of my clients, it's a good idea to start this process a long time beforehand. But again, be very weary of these trends. As we see these rates start to drop. Right now, this brown line here is my rates, and this is my valuations. Just like I saw here, if we see these rates start to drop, there's a good chance those values go back up. Again, nobody's got a crystal ball. We don't know exactly how things are going to pan out. There's a lot of different variables here. But just, as a buyer, keep that in mind. And sellers, I mean, again, we don't have that crystal ball. So look at the numbers, figure out what works for you. Either which way, as per the article down below, your homes are worth a lot more than what most of you ever paid for your homes. So, even though it seems like homes are down a lot, and they are from the 2022 highs, they are still significantly higher than where we were back in 2019. Just looking at this graph does a great job of it here. Here it is, COVID. Average sale price, what we got, around 670,000. And currently, we're looking in around 948. So still quite a bit higher there. So yeah, proceed with your plans. Don't let greed get in the way of enjoying your lives and moving on with them. Hopefully this is helpful. Well, thanks for taking the time to check out this video. I believe that wraps it up. Again, every situation is completely unique. I do have a good grasp of the mortgage and the real estate side and a number of other facets out there. So please feel free and comfortable. Give me a call, shoot me a text or an email. I'd love to help you out with whatever your situation is. And if I can't help you, I got lots of great colleagues and friends in many different fields that I can definitely refer you to. So anyways, wishing you all the best for the summer. And thanks again for listening to this video right to the end.